how much you admired her?
I hope that I adequately expressed my support for her.
Mrs. Crail.
Not now, Miss Williams.
I just wanted to...
Another time, please.
Yes, of course, I'm sorry. I think you're wonderful.
Oh, but you don't know.
And then, Mademoiselle?
And then they all went to tea at Meredith Blake's. And that evening after dinner, the usual arguments began about Angela and school.
Now you listen to me. The fees are paid, the uniforms bought, the matter is closed.
It's a lovely school, darling. It's right in the middle of the Downs. I'm sure you'll make lots of nice friends.
I don't want any friends.
You won't get any if you carry on like this.
Why do you want to get rid of me?
Nobody wants to get rid of you. You know we all love you.
He doesn't. He wouldn't care if he never saw me again.
Too right. All this screeching like a fishwife.
You know all about them.
Now look here, girlie.
I wish you were dead.
Angela!
I followed Angela to her room and reprimanded her sharply. The next morning was so beautiful, I fondly thought it might restore some peace to our lives. Little did I know it was the harbinger of murder.
Angela!
Angela had yet again disappeared. I thought for a swim, but there was no sign of her.
Angela!
So I returned to the house. Mrs. Crail was about to serve some beer before lunch, so I offered to help her. We went to the cellar, which was used for cold storage. As we arrived, we found Angela behaving in a most suspicious manner.
What on earth are you doing with that? I hope you weren't thinking of drinking it. I'll take it if you don't mind. Would you mind serving the others? I'll pop this down to Amyas.
And all this time Mademoiselle Greer was sitting for Monsieur Crail?
Yes. Oh, he got what he deserved.
Well, he acted very badly, oui, c'est vrai, but he was, well, a great artist, n'est-ce pas?
Great. Couldn't even draw. His perspective was terrible, his anatomy was all over the place. I know what I'm talking about. I studied art as a girl in Florence.
Tell me, mademoiselle, you were with Madame Crail when she discovered the body, yes?
No, not exactly. We went down from the house together after lunch. She was taking Mr. Crail some coffee, and I was going to the beach to look for Angela's jersey.
Amyas? Amyas!
Mrs. Crail?
It's Amyas. He's dead. Mr. Blake!
I
What's wrong?
bumped into Meredith Blake. I told him the terrible news and asked him to telephone the doctor. I was most concerned about Mrs. Crail. I didn't want her to be left alone.
Did you get an impression of what Madame Crail was thinking at that time?
It was impossible to tell. She was stunned.
What view did she adopt officially as to his death?
Suicide.
What, even in private, to you?
She had no doubt whatsoever.
And what did you say to her? Is that chair uncomfortable, mademoiselle?
It's perfectly comfortable, thank you.
You were about to tell me.
I think I said, certainly, Mrs. Crail, it must have been suicide.
Did you believe that?
No, I did not. But understand this, I was entirely on her side.
So you would have liked to have seen her acquitted?
Well, of course I would. A woman of honor, of dignity, hanged like a carcass in a butcher's shop. Poor Lucy. Having to be confronted by all of this. Still, it is always better to face the truth.
But there is more to it than that. She wants to prove her mother to be innocent.
then her wish will not be granted.
Before she was hanged, Caroline Crail wrote to her daughter a letter in which she solemnly swears her innocence.
It would perhaps have been better to tell her daughter not to judge.
You seem very sure of her guilt.
It's hard to believe otherwise.
And yet you profess to have loved her.
I did love her. I did. If that is all.
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you very much for your time, mademoiselle. You have been most helpful.
I know that she was guilty, monsieur. Without a shadow of a doubt.
May I ask how?
After bumping into Meredith Blake and informing him of Mr. Crail's death, I returned to the Water Garden. Mrs. Crail was not in command of herself, as I implied. It was the fear on her face that told me the truth. That's when I knew she had poisoned her husband. And I, for one, do not blame her. She never knew what I'd seen, and I never told her. In fact, I never told anybody. During the trial, I was never asked a question to which I returned an untrue answer, but I was guilty of withholding certain facts. And I do not repent of that, Monsieur Poirot. I would do so again.
Society is today. Since then, there have been other key excavations, but none as remarkable as Chagar Bazaar. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hercule Poirot, mademoiselle?
The Chagar Bazaar dig was quite simply extraordinary. Did you read my account of it in National Geographic?
Sadly, no. I have not yet had the...
Fairly definitive, though I do say so myself.
Little Lucy. It's so nice to see her.
You have not kept in contact?
No, not nearly as much as I should have done. I think it's admirable she wants to clear her mother's name.
Ah. Then you approve?
Of course. Caroline didn't do it. I've always known that.
You surprise me, mademoiselle. Everyone else with whom I have spoken...
I know. Circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. That's frankly why I've never attempted anything myself. I knew my sister extremely well. She quite simply couldn't have killed anyone.
But human nature has the infinite capacity to surprise.
Oh, not in this instance.
How can you be so certain?
Because I am.
But I'm afraid, mademoiselle, that will not stand up in court.
Just as well I was never called to give evidence.
But if you had been?
This is why I know.
But for many that would prove the exact opposite.
As they claimed at the trial, this was a moment's rage. It haunted her for the rest of her life. She never forgave herself. As a result, she was constantly on her guard. I'm not saying she was meek or timid, quite the opposite. But murder? Never. Never. It was an idyllic summer, in so many ways. What I can remember of it.
Oh, come on, Lucy, do shoot me. That's the whole point.
If only that woman hadn't come into our lives.
All this pretense. It's so dishonest. Amyas and I love each other and we're going to be married. So I shall be moving in.
Then when Amyas came out...
Why did Elsa say she's going to marry you?
How the devil did you hear that?
The window's open.
It's damned rude eavesdropping.
But why did she say it?
It was a joke.
It sounds very funny to me.
Enough, all right?
Come.